from the start.
Let me know once you're ready.
Yeah, it asked me for an account, immediately opened. I'm trying to create okay. I'm in page 100.
105. That's the chapter beginning of using MongoDB. The page number is at the bottom right. It should be showing you that there are 335 pages.
Yeah, there are 335 pages, and the page according to the book where there is 100, it has MongoDB,
No,
Node.js driver.
use the bottom right to go to 105 of 335.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. So this is a book about MERN stack, basically. You might already know it, but it's a good refresher. They have chosen to build a Jira clone. Do you know what Jira is?
I've heard of Jira, but
Okay,
I don't know what it is.
it's a software that people use to track project to-dos and things like that. People create issues there and then they mark issues as done and so on. So the way this book has started off is it's first introduced React and how the creation of the issues would look on the front end and things like that. But since there is no backend at that point, so it's basically work with dummy issues. Either there are some dummy issues stored that are displayed when you access the web page, or when you create an issue, it just temporarily is converted into a JavaScript variable, which will be lost when you close the web page. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, then this book has introduced Express. So we work with Fast API. So Express is JavaScript's way of doing what Fast API would be doing. It creates all those routes where you have URLs and you can attach function handlers to those URLs. So at that point
Yeah.
of time, it has configured passing of the issues to JavaScript backends and like to and fro, as in from the front end to the backend and backend to the front end. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
No. 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 No question.
Okay. So at this point as well, the issues are temporary. Now, instead of just dying when the front end is closed, they now die off when the back end, the express process is closed. So this is the final step of the process using the MongoDB database to actually store and retrieve the issues from. That okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's just start with the book one. So we'll just do initial pass. I'll just scroll from top to bottom, seeing what are the sections like. So
Okay.
they start off with MongoDB basics, and I think you are familiar with MongoDB. So here, basically, all your records, I think, are called documents, unlike what they are called in SQL, SQL-based databases, relational
Yeah,
databases. Then you have collections here. If I'm not wrong, collections are like tables of relational databases. Yeah, that is the first line actually. So that's what a collection would be. Uh, so I hope you are also scrolling down with me along as I'm saying out the headings. So,
yeah,
okay. After collections, we have the query language. So I guess in SQL, you have that dedicated syntax for accessing stuff. I have never seen anybody work with MongoDB directly. I'm sure there is a way to do it, but it's always usually through JavaScript or Python. So maybe they'll only talk about it in that regards. Then you have the section called installation. So I guess till now this book has described installing stuff using npm Node Package Manager, like all the Express libraries and React stuff that one would need. We'll
yeah.
see if Mongo is also managed by that or if Mongo is something different, a standalone sort of a software. Okay. Then we
And
have the Mongo shell. So I guess the stuff I said earlier about querying Mongo directly, I think maybe the Mongo shell will let us do that. Uh, do you have anything to add till now?
no, no, no. I'm just following.
Okay. So we can actually just glance through some of the commands in the Mongo shell like db and use playground, show databases, show collections. A lot of these things seem like explanatory by the command themselves. Then they give us an example of how we can insert a document. So we are inserting John Doe, who's of age 44, into our employees collection, I think. Uh, then they give an example of find. So I believe they're not calling find with uh, any filter. So it's going to just retrieve everything that is there. They show us a way of pretty printing what comes out of find. Then they insert another John H. Doe of age 22. And then, yeah, we have a find command where we actually give a filter that we just want people of age 44 from it. Uh, and then they're going to tell us a little more syntax. So instead of age exactly being 44, we next go to age greater than equal to 44 and so on. Uh, you can spot that command.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can spot the command.
Okay, fine. Although I don't
The
completely
command,
get
yeah.
the that arrow at the end of it seems to be an enter sign, or does it mean the command continues on the next line? I think it probably
I
means
think
it
it's
con.
an enter. It's
Okay,
an
but
enter.
if you
So
fall, hmm,
I've worked with two databases so far, SQLite3 and what's the other one? PostgreSQL. So when you enter such commands, as long as there's a comma at the end, they let you press enter and continue in the next line.
okay, I see. Okay, so basically the find query has not ended there. We seem to have two dictionaries as part of the find query. So this would be something we'll probably clarify when we read this section specifically. Then we
Okay.
also have an update, the next command. So this is, I think they are just giving us a teaser of the CRUD operations, uh, create, read, update, delete that are there in a database. So here, I guess what we are doing is we are updating an object with this ID to now have age 44. And then we have another write result line at the bottom. Not sure if that is a command or if that is the result of our insertion. Okay. Then finally we have the delete where we're going to delete something by their ID. And okay, so this write result is surrounded by two gray lines. So I believe that's the output of the command. And write result is just telling us that I ended up removing one record,
Mhm.
one document.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we have create index. I actually don't know. So index is it like the primary field or something? Again, we'll leave that to when we come to the section. Okay, so now we have shell scripting. I think this is where Mongo gets connected to JavaScript. You can see familiar JavaScript syntax like var, db. So I think this is probably an older book. This is, I think, from 2017. So that's why they're using var. As far as I know, people use let nowadays. So you can see that we create a new Mongo object. So this is kind
Yeah.
of like creating a database client, similar to how you would have done in SQLite 3 and Postgres if you access them through something else like Python or JS.
Yeah.
Okay, then we get the particular database playground. So I recall they had shown that we were going to do set playground or use playground at the starting to kind of set up this database. And then finally we have Mongo test.mongo.js. So this is a little weird, this syntax here. It seems to be a JS file, but there are two dots here, and we seem to be
Mhm.
calling it as part of Mongo. So we'll have to see what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have schema initialization. So normally I think what this means is that you lay out what your database can contain and what those fields are supposed to take. Are they integers or strings and things like that?
Yeah.
So in fact, the first, yeah, you know about this?
Yeah. 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 But maybe it's different, man. It's because I've done with the SQL type.
Okay, sure. Come to listing 6.1. That's the first one here. So they seem to be getting a database called issue tracker. Uh, they seem to be removing stuff from it. I'm not sure what this means. Does it mean remove everything? And then they are inserting stuff here. So all of this seems to be a specific, like whatever we're inserting seem to be specific documents rather than some abstract way of defining the schema. Also, we have create indexes being used here. So we skipped this command earlier. Maybe we'll figure out what it means after that.
Okay.
Okay, then we have the MongoDB node.js driver. So I guess till now the JS files that we discussed were probably just collecting Mongo commands into a JS file, but they had nothing to do with a larger node setup. So yeah, here you can actually see in this section npm install MongoDB save. So this thing probably installs that way to connect to a Mongo server through JavaScript. Is that
Yeah.
fine?
Yeah. 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 That's fine.
So till now, yeah, till now what we did was installing the Mongo server and feeding the Mongo server commands as part of JS files. But now what we are probably installing is a way for Node to talk to the Mongo server. Okay.
Okay.
So maybe I might have been wrong when I said earlier we are creating a Mongo client. We'll have to just confirm that. Here at the bottom of this page, we have this thing. So we are going to require MongoDB. So this I have learned is a way for of importing modules in JavaScript in Node, similar to
Mm-hmm.
how we have it in Python. And then
Yeah.
whenever you are importing a module, that module exports things. Like it says that for the outer world or whoever imports me, I will make these variables visible to them. So it's probably exporting Mongo client. And this Mongo client, we are now going to keep it inside a constant called Mongo client.
Okay.
Uh, some questions?
I am familiar with this syntax. I
Okay.
made a React project sometime back. Uh, yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so then let's see how connection happens. So we are going to connect to this thing. So one thing that stands out here, it looks like a URL. The protocol is MongoDB. So we have
Mhm.
MongoDB colon and slash slash. And then I suppose this is where our database runs at whenever it's running. So it's at
Yeah.
localhost slash playground.
Yeah.
Then we also provided with a callback. This callback can process two pieces of information, an error and a database. So uh, when we come into the function, we can use the DB to find stuff and okay, so we are finding the things, we are converting them into an array, and then on this array, we are going to do a console.log. So this seems to be kind of like an immediate thing that we might want to do as soon as we connect to a database.
Okay. So looks like it's trying to find trying to find an array from the collection employees, and since this is the first time this is being it's trying to connect to that particular database, I would assume that it doesn't have anything. um
So I think we are running with the same database we have been in this chapter, which means that
oh,
all those dummy values that we put into it, they will be available. And
okay,
even if they are
okay.
not, I believe when you do a find inherently returns you back an empty list or something. So that
Yeah,
list,
yeah.
when you convert it into an array, it's still an valid array, it's just empty probably.
Okay. And another thing I noticed is when you are defining the schema, I've actually
Okay.
not done that in the other databases. You just define the name of your database and you define the what is it? Maybe the name, even the name of the table. You don't have to do that. You just have to define the name of the database, and then the code tends to do the rest. But if it was done in a different stack, like with Fast API or Django or Flask, there's usually an ORM, most commonly SQL Alchemy. So it
Hmm.
does all of that. That's unrelated, but just by the way.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I see. I
yeah.
think that like for fast API, knowing what a database, like the elements of it and its types, help it parse all the requests and messages that are being passed to and from it. So when you do a put request or something, in this book they have also we previously only dealt with post and get requests. There are also apparently put and I think delete those sort of requests where where they are inherently like a database instruction. So in that case, if a message is coming and Fast API knows that the message contains an age which is an integer and all, it probably helps it understand the message by using a middleware. So what I'm trying to say is what you're saying. Uh, it seems that the schema, defining the schema, is not necessary from the database's perspective, but from the view of the guy who's handling the HTTP requests.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, I might be wrong, but we'll find that out. Okay, so this was just a teaser of how we will use Mongo. Then they have text again. Then we have listing 6.2. Uh, do you know what use strict does?
No, no.
Okay, neither do I. So we start off in the same way. We define a client. We have now a function called usage, and it seems to be like a help function. So node underscore underscore file name option, where option is one of callbacks. Use the callbacks promises generator async. And it seems like a help function. I don't know where it will be used. Okay, if
Yeah.
process.argv.length is smaller than 3. Okay, so it is that. It is handling input arguments then. So I think just like Python, we have sys.argv. Here it seems to be process.argv. And in Python, we use len as a function on top of a list. Here dot length is like a member attribute of a list. So we are saying that if this is less than 3, then you didn't provide enough arguments. Otherwise, if argument 2 is callbacks, so I think the first argument of this would be something like node or something. The second argument would be the name of the JavaScript file. And the
Yeah.
third is where the actual command line arguments start. Is that fine?
Yeah, yeah, I'm just a bit unfamiliar with those terms. Callback and promises. Do they define to those arguments you mentioned?
I think, right, they have not discussed these explicitly till now. They are I think their usage will make them a little clearer. Right now, just think of this as writing the command line parser without too much regard for the meaning of what callbacks and promises mean. So
Okay.
all they're checking is that do we want callbacks, do we want promises, generators or async? And these functions till now haven't been written yet. Test with generator, test with async, etc.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess, right. So I guess what this
Um,
gave us, yeah, go ahead.
so given we have arguments here, meaning we have to write a command. So the question would be, is because at this point we are at the back end, so would we
Hmm.
need to run this on a separate space compared to the other guys? So let's say the front end is running somewhere else, and this also has to run on a like a separate tab or in.
I think, no, the front end will run in the browser. Like as soon as that URL is accessed, the front end runs in the browser. But the
Yeah,
back end runs using the terminal, right? Like you have
yeah,
access to the compute. So yeah, you will
yeah.
need to, as far as I understand, run this in the terminal. Was that the question
Okay.
or?
Yeah, yeah. So my question was, I know it's going to be run on the terminal, but
Okay,
when you go to run, let's say you have a React project and you do npm blah blah blah, and it
okay,
spits out the URL, localhost maybe 8000, 8002. So you open that.
okay.
So meaning that particular terminal you're using is occupied. So if you run that
Oh,
particular command, is it
okay.
inclusive of the backend commands, or do you have to find a separate terminal to run these commands for the backend?
Okay, I haven't run a React project yet, and from this book, I might be misremembering, but it felt as if the React was completely part of the HTML page of the JSX, whatever you write there.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
think it is controlled by the single node.js thing that will run the backend. So just like in Fast API, we would have templates and we would even access index.html through the static files, if you remember.
Yeah, yeah.
So I believe that the front end here will either be part of the static files or it will be changed by using some template that is modified by the backend before giving to the browser. That's how I was taking it. But I think they will give instructions on how it fits. So maybe your question will be answered then.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we are going through all of these options, and yeah, so now they will actually talk about individual parts of it. So test with callbacks. So let's, I think we can at least understand the functionality here. So the name says that we'll probably do something to the database to kind of see if all our connectivity is happening. I think the simplest thing would be to retrieve something from the database, either all records or a particular filter on the record,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll use a similar command as before. Our Mongo client connects to the database, and then as soon as we connect, the database is delivered to a handler with this function. And at this point, you can see here that we are going to insert one element into it, id1 name a dot callback. So I think they are making sure that the name is gibberish so that you can recognize that it's not a real person. And even with the insertion, so we have a handler function that the result. Now, if you remember, when we were dealing with the MongoDB shell, we saw write result multiple times. Do you recall?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I believe that will be the type of the result that we get here. I think when it's delivered to JavaScript, it's like a JavaScript object. A JavaScript object, I guess, is just a dictionary. So that's why you can read its dot inserted ID. So if there's a
Mm-hmm.
success, I suppose this will be a non-negative integer. Okay, and at this point, uh, if let's say you have been able to insert it, why not go ahead and try and find exactly what you inserted? So you do a dot find again with the ID that you used in the insert. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then you convert it into an array. And probably you do that because a to array takes another function that when converting or after converting it to an array, do this on all the elements. So at this point, all your results from the find will be in a variable called docs, and you'll
Yeah.
just log them to the, uh, I think this will get logged to the terminal probably.
Okay. Okay.
And
Um,
at this point, you also do db.close that you're done with the connection.
uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so callback in Python and elsewhere are basically functions that are supposed to run once something some event has happened. Like you might most commonly find them in JavaScript associated
Yeah.
with events.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this Okay, so I guess callbacks is clear now. Test with callbacks.
Yeah. So you're saying that callbacks will only run at a particular event.
Yeah. So here
Okay.
I believe the event is the connection to the database being established. After that, all the events are simple JavaScript. They have nothing special to do with the database. But the fact that you're running the function as soon as the connection is established is the reason why we call this test with callbacks.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess it makes a
Okay.
lot more sense. I remember callbacks from when we were dealing with the audio project. So
Okay.
we had the like audio chunks array, and the
Yeah.
event there was once we have some audio input, then the event was when you have those data arrays filled, then it's maybe converted into another format. I don't remember the specifics, but I can
So
recall from that.
do you recall dot then and dot catch in that code?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, so those I agree those are also events, but dot then and dot catch are actually promises. They're not promises, but they are attributes, or they are ways of working with promises. So both promises and callbacks, I think, do deal with events happening, but callbacks is simple that once event happens, run this function. I think let's have a look at the next listing so that we can
Mm,
compare what happens when you have promises. So listing 6.4 is the one with promises. We start with let db. So yeah, now I had claimed previously that, sorry, I had claimed previously that we are using var db because maybe this book is old, but I also see let being used now. So it might be
mhm.
that that var that we used earlier is because Mongo's JavaScript scripting whatever version is older than the JavaScript version that's available for Node,
Yeah,
if that
yeah.
makes sense.
Also, I've done, according to me, I would say that the way those two are used might be different. So var, I still let mostly being used within functions, and
Okay.
var is used like outside versions. I don't want to explicitly say that it's a global or local variable thing, but I think it's based on that concept.
I think you should look it up sometime. I remember it in a certain way that var allows for some bubbling where even if you define var in a nested block, by nested block I mean a function inside a function, then that
Mm,
var starts being visible outside of that nested block as well. In Python, if you think about it, it's not the case. Something defined outside is visible to nested blocks inside, as in
yeah,
if you think of nested blocks as the children. But if
yeah.
nested blocks define something, they are never visible to outside. So I'm okay, I might be wrong with calling it bubbling, but there is some term for it. So I think let prevents that from happening is what I remember. But I think you should look
Okay,
it up sometime. Right now, we'll
okay,
just go ahead assuming this is the correct way. So
okay.
now look at the syntax here. We are going to connect, but instead of giving it a callback after the URL and comma, we are doing dot then.
Yes.
So this is generally the promises syntax. So in as far as I've understood, promises is kind of like a return type, and it's a return type that remains empty because the job that you've asked to happen might take some time. But because you can capture the return into a variable, it allows the code to move forward to other lines, provided whatever was returned isn't going to be used immediately. Like, for example, if you don't immediately want to use the database, you can maybe initialize other things like a media device for a user to talk and things like that. You can go ahead and do that. And hopefully, by the time you get to accessing the database, the connection has happened, or in the off chance it has not happened, it then starts blocking. It says, now I really need your return, so I'll wait till you actually finish the job. Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So that's why you have the dot then syntax. It means that once the promise has been fulfilled, which means that the promise has given what it needs to give, then do this. So at this point, I guess we have a connection object, and DB is the same as connection according to them. So here you can see there is no error and database, there's just database, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Also, um, I can see that these promises are following each other. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, I'm kind of feeling a bit of about the error handling here. So let's say at the
Error is at
first
the
prompt.
end. Error is at the end. Just pointing
Ah,
that in case you didn't see it. So dot catch.
okay.
So as
And
now again, this is from reading the code. I might be wrong. I believe that this catch handler is triggered whenever any of these dot thens or the original promise undergoes an error. So what I mean by that is you'll come up in this final catch block if your connection doesn't go through, or if your connection has happened but the first dot then there is some error in that, or in the second dot then, etc., etc. So this is like a catch all catch regardless of wherever you hit the error.
okay, okay.
Because it might appear since it's the last catch, is it
Yeah,
associated with the last dot then? But I don't
yeah,
think that is the case. Okay,
yeah. That's
so
what I was thinking.
yeah, so I think the sequence of steps that would be happening here would be the same as what we did with callbacks. So if you recall, with callbacks, we inserted something, then
Mm,
then we kind of found it again, and then did we remove it as well or no? No, we just I think found it. That's all, right?
yeah, yep.
Okay, so
Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's the same. It's the same.
okay, fine. So just different way. Of course, in the text, they might have some details about if they prefer any one of these ways. So then we have a few other things like with the generator. So generators we've seen in Python. I think they seem to be the same here. In Python, there is another concept related to these things called coroutines. I say that because I noticed in their text they write co-module, but co is actually a module here. So you can see in listing 6.5, we are importing co by using require co, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a very different type of a function here. We are using function star. I have not seen this syntax. Uh,
Mm,
it seems to be anonymous, but for anonymous functions, we already have the arrow function available in JavaScript. So this
yeah.
seems to be something special. I
Okay.
will be skipping
Maybe.
this listing because it seems to have a lot of things I don't get. So maybe reading the text is required. Do you have any thing to add here?
No, 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 no. I was thinking that maybe in most cases the asterisk means all. So maybe within this core, they are trying to use everything within it. But I also don't think so because if it wasn't an async function, then they would have used a normal variable name. So it's a function and then the name, maybe in common case. So it's odd. I don't, yeah, that's my idea.
Okay. Yeah, but we've also seen star in C specifically refer to pointers. I don't know
Mm,
if JavaScript has any idea of pointers, so I'm not so sure on that. So then we have the
okay.
async module. Again, let's just quickly read the listing to see if there's any point in dealing with this now or holding it off later. So we seem to be using the async module in listing 6.6. We then have a async dot waterfall. So waterfall makes me believe that it's a sequence of functions running one after the other. Not
Yeah.
completely sure then why use async here because every function seems to be waiting for the previous one to finish. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so
That's
there is
exactly
a
what waterfall.
yeah, what?
I'm saying that that's what waterfall means. So it might be.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we start, so it seems to be taking a list of many different things. So I guess waterfall connect will connect these functions one by one. The first function is an arrow function. It takes next. I guess next is the standard key, like standard name when using waterfall. It
yeah,
believes that this will be the next output, I guess. So at this point, we are going to do MongoDB.connect and we'll provide next. Okay. So okay, it actually makes me feel that the function at location 2 of this list is the function that is there that will be fed to it as next, because this connect syntax, if you recall, is the same as with the callbacks, where you have the MongoDB URL as well as a second argument, which used to be a callback then.
yeah, yeah. Also, then if each function is going to run after the next, then why? I mean, what makes this different? And um, with like they would have just used synchronous functions and with
I
callbacks and
think,
primitive.
yeah, I think they just want to show four different ways of doing it, which makes me believe maybe in industry people have certain preferences about how they write testing code. So maybe there's some group of people who use async for it. I'm pretty sure that in all of these four methods, the end goal will exactly be the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I
so
will.
hmm,
So in the waterfall paradigm in SDLC, don't know whether that's the same thing with this. The main
okay,
disadvantage is usually once it's done with step one and then it goes to step two, three, blah blah blah. So the main
okay,
disadvantage is that once it gets to say step four, you can't go back
okay.
to step three. So if you're at step four and then you realize, oh, you fucked up, you can't go back. So maybe that's, I don't know that it's the same here. So yeah.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know too much about that, so could be. So one thing is clear that next here is being re is I don't think its name is special, but its usage is such that it's being used to refer to the next element in this list of functions. So waterfall is going to take a list of functions, and in any function, if you want to refer to the next guy, they're using next here. Uh, so the first one, it is clear that next being used here refers to the function at location 2, which is a callback. But I might be wrong, because in the next function you can see connection comma next return here. Uh, so I guess if that is the case, okay, I think the what I said still holds. So the next guy is going to be passed the output from the first one. So the first one's output is the connection or the database connection, and it's also
Mm-hmm.
going to be fed the next function in this sequence. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, and it is also now what you said becomes relevant here. We are always passing it next. We are not passing it previous as well. So it is kind of like that once you move ahead to step 4,
Mm.
step 3, you don't have any info from step 3 unless
Yeah,
you step 3 explicitly return something. So in this case, the first step explicitly returned a connection that was fed to the next function, but apart from that, there is no more communication, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So at this point, in the next one, we do the insert. And I think we saw in the callback section, after the insert, we can also pass a callback. This callback analyzes, did the insert go through? And it also does some more of its own stuff. And the more of its own stuff is the find that we ran, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah,
ran a find on the ID we inserted. And then if you recall, there also we did a to array, and in that to array we had a callback, and in this callback we just logged to the console. That's all.
yeah.
Okay, so now notice that the function that does the console logging. After that, you can see a closing square bracket, which means that the
Mhm.
waterfall has ended. And
Yeah,
after this, you give a single error handling function. I think again, like the promises one, this error handling happens regardless of which step you failed at. Is that okay?
yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, so at least we have the structure of it. Okay, I think we'll stop here for now. I think, maybe continue the glancing through the chapter, and once that is done, we'll come back around to just read the sections